This is John Contreras, and you are listening to my show, Greek News on Demand. That is Greek News on Demand, which is based off of my news website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That's one word, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. Today is Friday, December the 16th. The time is 11:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think you're going to like this show today, so please stand by. Okay, so Greece is going through a very difficult time right now with its negotiations with the Troika. This term, the Troika, has now come back for good as the correct, let's say, naming for the Greek government's partners from Europe. For about almost a year, they've tried to get rid of this old stigma of a name, replacing it with partners in order to basically act like, while the old Troika that's been oppressing Greece in recent years has now basically been replaced with a different type of team, with different type of negotiators that are more mild toward Greece. Well, that was just a front, because really in the past year, they've done absolutely nothing to help Greece in order to improve its financial situation. As a matter of fact, Greece's financial situation has basically steadily gotten worse over the past 6 years, since the onset of the bailout period with the Troika from the spring of 2010 up until today. So basically, their attempt to, try to play off the fact that they're continuing to oppress Greece has completely failed. So now, people in Greece and in other parts of Europe, and even European Union officials are even now starting to use the term Troika again. So that's just utterly ridiculous. So basically at this point, the Greek government is pretty much stuck between a rock and a hard place. And really the issue right now is what's going to happen basically with the new Trump administration. Because as things are rolling along with the Troika, the Greek government right now really doesn't know what to expect from the International Monetary Fund, which is part of the Troika, and the American government. As you all may recall, about a few weeks ago, President Obama, outgoing President Obama, decided to go and visit Greece for the first time ever in the 8 years of his 2 presidencies. Yes, you heard that correctly. Obama finally decided to go and visit the wonderful and amazing, beautiful place of Greece the last, 2 months of his presidency. In other words, he never visited Greece before. So now all of a sudden, now that he's an outgoing president, he remembers them and decides to go show solidarity, quote unquote, with them, the Greeks. What a load of crock. Obama basically has had to carry out a few little agendas before he leaves office. And he's had to do it on behalf of his New World Order handlers. And these New World Order handlers basically told him straight out, you need to basically go and tell the Greek people before you leave what they need to do, and basically what they need to do is to continue to shut their mouths and obey the Troika, and basically do whatever the International Monetary Fund wants them to do, because the International Monetary Fund plays a huge, huge role in what goes on in Greece. Even though Greece hasn't taken money from them in a few years, still they play a huge technical role, because the United States basically is the main shareholder of the IMF. It's really the Treasury Department. Now, the Treasury Department itself, though, as I've stated before on this broadcast, is not a government agency, a U.S. government agency at all. The Treasury Department is nothing more, basically, than the enforcement arm of the IMF, as well as, of course, the IRS for American taxpayers. Both the IRS and the Treasury Department are two illegal government, quote-unquote, agencies that are based in Puerto Rico. Okay? So, as I've stated before, the head of the Treasury Department is not sworn in basically as a U.S. government official. He's part of a private corporation. His term is every 5 years, not every 4 or 2 years like other normal government officials. So that's a fact, and you can look that up. And in recent years, the U.S. government has decided to scrub any type of reference to all of this, because in the past about 10 years or more, the internet has been flooded with references about all this stuff, and people have been waking up to this reality. And if you go to, for example, YouTube, and you type in IRS and Ed Bannister, you'll find out that Mr. Ed Bannister was a high IRS official for years, and then he woke up to the truth about all this, and he quit, and he paid a big price for it. But he's been vindicated in court because he had faith and he stood firm against this tyranny. So in recent years, the government has basically been ordered to scrub any references to all of this from their official websites. So they're hitting up the internet first, because that's where people go to look for their information. So a few examples I can give you, just real briefly, are from Universal Commercial Code and from the other various type of government codes. There's also the CFR code, etc., etc. So here's one website of the U.S. government called supremelaw.org. Now, some of us hip researchers and journalists have been able to save some of the screenshots off of the websites of the government where these things were mentioned previously but now have been taken down. So, for example, supremelaw.org, it says appropriate ATF officer, an officer or employee of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, authorized to perform any functions related to the administration or enforcement of this part by ATF Order 1130.29, Delegation Order, Delegation of the Director's Authorities in 27 CFR Part 26, liquors and articles from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, etc., etc. What it's referring to is basically the fact that the IRS is based in Puerto Rico as this alcohol, tobacco, and firearms garbage. That's basically their place where, that's where their base is. So from another government website, gpo.gov, that's gpo.gov, under the subsection Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Treasury. Notice two agencies here. The fake agency of the IRS, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Treasury. Okay, we read in subpart B in definitions, and under the subheading meaning of terms, we read the following: Bureau of Alcoholic Beverage Taxes. Bureau of Alcoholic Beverage Taxes of the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. And basically, it goes on to basically talk about more about all how these agencies operate under the, the color of law, and so on and so forth. So listen to this part. Chief Puerto Rico Operations. The primary representative in Puerto Rico of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. His complete address is Chief, Puerto Rico Operations, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, U.S. Courthouse, and Federal Building, Room 659, Avenida Carlos Chardon, Hato Rey, Puerto Rico, 00919. And then we read commercial bank, a bank, whether or not a member of the Federal Reserve System, which has access to the Federal Reserve Communications System, FRCS or Fedwire. The FRCS or Fedwire is a communications network that allows Federal Reserve System member banks to effect a transfer of funds from their customers or other commercial banks to the Treasury account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So anyway, those are a few examples that you can basically find. There's a website where you can access all of this, and I'm going to give it to you right now. Before I forget, though, there's another government website. It's called supremelaw.org, supremelaw.org. And in the part where it talks about Code of Federal Regulations, Title 27, Volume 1, revised as of April the 1st, 2005, from the U.S. Government Printing Office via GPO access, Site 27 CFR 26.11. Title 27, Alcohol, Tobacco, Products, and Firearms, Chapter 1, Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, Department of the Treasury, Part 26, Liquors and Articles from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Okay, so that website that I wanted to give you is called Ignorance is a Choice, but the URL is ppjg.m as in Mary, E. ppjg.me. So, for example, you can read one of their articles just by Googling it, by Marty Oakley. The title is Treasury Secretary does not work for the United States. Treasury Secretary does not work for the United States. The appointment of a Secretary of the Treasury is just that, an appointment to a position which is not a cabinet position in any administration. The Secretary of the Treasury is the governor appointed to the World Bank, International Monetary Fund. He is an officer of he is not an officer of the United States. He is not a cabinet member and does not represent the interests of the U.S. His position is a liaison between the federal government and the IMF. His obligation is to the IMF, not to the United States. The Secretary of the Treasury is not sworn into office as cabinet members are and takes no oaths to the United States. So, as I said before, we got some major issues going on with Greece, particularly during the transition phase from Obama to Trump. Obama goes to Greece. Now, the first night he's there, they have a special gala for him. He starts popping off little phrases in Greek, and all the Greeks go wild. Whoa, opa, opa. They just fall in love with him because he's speaking a few phrases in Greek. Gee, how cute, how nice. Now, it's pretty ironic, particularly in view of the fact that it's Obama that has destroyed Greece during these past 8 years. Because if you recall, the Greek economic crisis started on his watch. And he is very much responsible for what's going on in Greece due to the fact, like I said before, the U.S. government plays a huge role in the IMF. Okay? And the IMF, of course, has had absolutely detrimental policies for the Greeks. And the IMF right now is requesting even more austere measures from the Greek people after all that they've already been through. And basically, there's this whole discussion going on as to whether they're going to continue to even be involved, basically, with Greece's financial situation. And basically, the only way that they want to be involved is if Greece basically submits to their demands, end of story. So there's this huge discussion going on in Europe right now between the IMF and the rest of the Troika and the German government of Angela Merkel along with her financial minister, Wolfgang Schäuble, because as you know, Germany plays a huge role in what goes on in the negotiations between Greece and, of course, their European partners. And, of course, too, every time a new bailout package is signed between Greece and the Troika, it's Germany and, of course, the rest of the EU member nations that play a role in Greece's bailout that have to approve of this package. So it's a very complicated situation, but just understand that Germany plays a huge leading role in all of this, and they've been screwing Greece as well. So we're going to have to wait and see what takes place with all of this. And I'll explain a little bit about this a little bit later on. But the main issue now is what's going to happen between now and the time that, Trump takes office. So Obama goes to Greece, and that very first night, according to reports, get a load of this, he slipped off at night with the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, and they both went to a special Freemasonic ceremony, which basically was part of the Skull and Bones secret society. And basically it was somewhere in some lodge next to the Greek government building there in Athens, and it was a secret ceremony that both Alexis Tsipras, the Greek Prime Minister, and Obama took place in, with some other Freemasons and things of that sort. And, of course, it had to do with Skull and Bones, because Skull and Bones is the secret society that binds all the world leaders basically together. So that, of course, is according to credible sources out of Greece. And about a year ago, when Tsipras had come here to the United States for the first time, it was October of last year, there were reports at that time, too, that he had gone to participate in, for the first time, in a Skull and Bones ceremony with Obama. And, when they had finished with the ceremony, which, of course, was done under complete secrecy, Tsipras looked like a completely different person. And he was doing ninks and wads and signs and nods with Obama that were like really weird and strange, and could only be attributed, of course, to this secret society that they, of course, both belong to. Now, I made a video yesterday. You can find it on my channel, John Contouris. That's JohnKounTouris on YouTube. John Contouris on YouTube. And it's in both Greek and English, and it has to do with the fact that now the Turks basically have just basically gone in completely insane and are now causing problems in the Aegean Sea for the Greek people. And this is one of the major issues right now that the Greek people are having to deal with, particularly in view of the fact that Obama doesn't want to deal with it. And now, of course, Trump is going to have to deal with it. And I'm talking about the fact that the Turks are trying to take over the whole Aegean Sea, along with, of course, the Greek islands. So before I forget, I want to mention this video that I uploaded, and you can see it on my YouTube channel, John Contouris with a K. And the title is Turks Take Over the Aegean. So basically I describe how the Turks have gone forward in issuing their own NOTAM in that area, basically, of the Mediterranean. So basically, a NOTAM is a notice to airmen. It is a notice filed with an aviation authority to alert aircraft pilots of potential hazards along a flight route or location that could affect the safety of the flight. NOTAMs are unclassified notices or advisories distributed by means of telecommunication that contain information concerning the establishment, conditions, or change in any aeronautical facility, service, product, or hazard, the timely knowledge of which is essential to personnel and systems concerning with flight operations. NOTAMs are created and transmitted by government agencies and airport operators under guidelines specified by Annex 15, Aeronautical Information Services of the Convention of International Civil Aviation, CICI. The term NOTAM came into common use rather than the more formal Notice to Airmen following the ratification of CICI, which came into effect on the 4th of April, 1947. Notices to airmen were normally published in a regular publication by each country's air authorities. A number of developments and amendments to the CICI have resulted in a more automated system available today. A NOTAM is filed with an aviation authority to alert aircraft pilots of any hazards en route or at a specific location. The authority, in turn, provides a means of disseminating relevant NOTAMs to pilots. NOTAMs are issued and reported for a number of reasons, such as hazards such as air shows, parachute jumps, kite flying, flights by important people such as heads of states, closed runways, inoperable radio navigation aids, military exercises with resulting airspace restrictions, inoperable lights on tall obstructions, temporary erection of obstacles near airfields, and so on and so forth. So basically, this is sort of an international protocol that everyone follows, and it has to do with sea also, with the sea. Because what the Turks just did was to issue these NOTAMs saying that over the next year or so, from January 2017 to exactly December the 29th, 2017, they're going to basically, they have issued a NOTAM stating they're going to be doing military exercises in the Aegean Sea with boats and with planes. In effect, what they're doing is issuing a statement, a NOTAM, and saying, don't mess with us while we're sailing in your Aegean Sea, Greeks, or when we're flying in your airspace. That's essentially what they're saying. Now, of course, the Greeks can dispute this, but this, of course, might create even more friction to the already taut and tender relationship between Greece and Turkey. This is the real issue right now that's going on between Greece and Turkey. The Turks have gone forward in this unilateral act, basically trying to use this as a precedent to take over the Aegean Sea. So I'll keep you updated basically on what happens with this. And the issue, though, is much, much more wider. It dates back to, of course, the fake coup that Erdogan pulled back in July of this year, trying to garner the support of the whole world by saying, oh, look, the terrorists, these enemies of the state, they're trying to take me down. I'm such a good and loving Turkish president. How dare they try to do this? It's Fethullah Gulen, my former political opponent, who was behind all this, and the United States is giving him basically refuge in Washington, D.C., and they don't want to extradite him to Turkey to stand trial and all this garbage. So ever since that coup, Turkey has used this as an opportunity to basically cause problems for Greece, to try to claim parts of the Aegean for themselves. Recently, Erdogan went forward in some utterly crazy statements saying that basically the Treaty of Lausanne, which was signed in 1923 between Greece, Turkey, and all the great powers, does not count because basically Turkey got screwed at that time by the great powers. They got screwed out of their islands, and all those islands in the Aegean Sea belong to them and not to Greece. So the Treaty of Lausanne, or Lucane, you can call it, Luasanne, was a peace treaty signed in Lausanne, Switzerland on the 24th of July, 1923. It officially settled the conflict that had originally existed between the Ottoman Empire and the Allied British Empire, French Republic, Kingdom of Italy, Empire of Japan, Kingdom of Greece, and the Kingdom of Romania since the onset of World War I. The original text of the treaty is in French. It was the result of a second attempt at peace after the failed Treaty of Sevres, Sevres, which was signed by all previous parties but later rejected by the Turkish national movement, who fought against the previous terms and significant loss of territory. The Treaty of Lausanne ended the conflict and defined the borders of the modern Turkish Republic. In the treaty, Turkey gave up all claims to the remainder of the Ottoman Empire, and in return, the Allies recognized Turkish sovereignty within its new borders. Now, this Treaty of Lausanne was ratified by Turkey on the 23rd of August, 1923. It was ratified by Greece on the 25th of August of the same year, and then, of course, it was ratified in subsequent years by Italy, Japan, Great Britain, and so on and so forth. The treaty came into force on the 6th of August, 1924, when the instruments of ratification had been officially deposited in Paris, France. So basically, Erdogan is trying to say that, Turkey got screwed out of their islands back then. And at that time, what took place was these islands, they actually went under the control of Italy. Italy had them at that time. And Italy basically controlled them for a while. And then, of course, what happened was, in 1947, Italy signed a treaty with Greece to return to them all of these islands. All of the islands in the Aegean Sea, that is. So now Turkey today is claiming that those islands really belong to them and not to Greece, which is just utterly ridiculous because Turkey gave them all up back during the signing of the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923. So basically, when Italy occupied this area of the Aegean, they had verified basically that indeed they had under their control all of these islands that are basically in the Aegean Sea, particularly in the Dodecanus, which is a very special block of islands that borders closely Greece and Turkey. So in Greek we call them the Dodecanisa. So basically, Turkey wants to take over these islands, and what they're doing is they're trying to start some crap there now by basically provoking Greece into some type of confrontation, some type of conflict, which can lead basically, of course, to wider dimensions. It can lead to a greater, more extensive conflict in that area, and that's something, of course, that Greece does not want to do. Greece does not want to get involved in a war right now with Turkey. But, like I said, it's pretty odd that since July of this year, Turkey has been basically doing all these things. They've also, of course, been heightening their illegal flyovers in Greece airspace and have been sailing into Greek territorial waters, completely illegal, violating Greece's national sovereignty, violating international law. And the international community is doing absolutely nothing about this. America's doing nothing about this. Now let's go back to Obama's visit in Greece. The Greek Prime Minister and the Greek President both asked Obama what he's going to do about the illegal flyovers of the Turks into Greek airspace, which, like I said, has been heightened in recent months. The Turks have been doing this constantly over the past couple of decades, ever since the tragedy at the Greek island Imia, where 20 years ago exactly, some Greek helicopter pilots and officers, military officers, Navy officers, were shot down basically by the Turks over this island because that's a very critical area that the Turks want to take over, and they don't want the Greeks to patrol that area or try to claim it as theirs, because once they do and it becomes solidified in international law and so on and so forth, then that means that the Greeks have that territory. Now, they already do have that territory. It's theirs, but the Turks just don't want them to basically claim it completely as theirs. And the reason being is because that area is full of natural resources. We're talking about billions and trillions of dollars worth of the most precious metals and, of course, petroleum. So that's the reason why the Turks are wanting this area of the Aegean, particularly this particular island, Emia. So the Turks have been flying over Greek airspace illegally for decades, and the international community is doing nothing. So Obama, when he was in Greece, once basically he was asked by the Greek Prime Minister and other Greek government officials what he's going to do about this, he didn't even answer them. The total a-hole, excuse me for my language. He didn't even give them he didn't even answer them. He just blew off the question. And we're talking about a very, very critical question that affects Greece's national sovereign interests. He just decided to blow off the question and basically not even answer it, which is totally messed up, which is totally irresponsible on his part. Now, this is a major issue that needs to be addressed by the international community and, of course, by the newly elected U.S. President Donald Trump. So, because what the Turks are doing right now is very, very, very dangerous, and they're trying to provoke Greece into a war. So the international community needs to come to their aid right now. So I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday I made a video, like I said, you can find it on my YouTube channel, called Turks Take Over the Aegean. So I'm going to play for you a quick clip of this from the English portion of this so you get an idea of what's going on. Basically, the Turks, they chased out of this same Greek island, which I just mentioned, Emia, a couple of Greek shipping boats, actually fishing boats. They told them, get out of here. These are our territorial waters, which is just completely the same. They're Greek territorial waters. So this now, of course, has become a huge issue the last 24 hours in the Greek news. So here's the clip. This video that you just saw basically on your screens, ladies and gentlemen, had to do with this report that I just uploaded to our site, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. I'm going to translate it into English. Basically what took place recently, within the past 24 hours apparently, is that the Turks have quarantined off the whole Aegean Sea, which you can see right now on your screen. This is just a little snapshot of that. They've quarantined it off for about a year, and they're going to basically be doing exercises there for over the next year, is what we're gathering right now from Greek intelligence, particularly from this gentleman here, Manolis Hadjisavas, a former Greek intelligence agent who has paid a dear price, like I said before, speaking the truth about what's been going on in Greece over the years. So you can see the coordinates right here of the quarantining of the Aegean on the part of the Turks. This is exclusive information that you're not going to find anywhere else. So basically, Panos Kamenos, who's he's like basically the co-leader of the Greek, of the Hellenic Republic, with Mr. Alexis Tsipras from the governing party Syriza. He's a complete idiot and a traitor. And he's basically screwed up all of Greece in so many different ways. It's not even a joke. So basically, that is exclusive information. Like I said, you're not going to find anywhere else. And of course, this again is the video which I just showed you, which shows Turkish vessels shunning from the Aegean Sea, particularly from the island Emia, Greek vessels of the Greek Coast Guard. Yes, you heard that correctly. So this is very, very, very critical. Here we hear a Turkish person basically speaking about what's going on, and apparently this Turkish person is doing his duty to get the truth out about what's going on. And if it wasn't for this Turk, we would not know that this took place today, because certainly the Greek media is not going to tell us about it because they're bought and paid for. Okay, so basically, a few days ago, just to cap up what I just said on my video, a few days ago, basically, some fishermen were kicked out of this area. And then yesterday, Greek patrol boats from the Greek Coast Guard were kicked out of that area by the Turks. They weren't really kicked out of that area. It's just they didn't want a wider conflict with the Turks, because if they would have opened fire on the Turks, then all hell would have broken loose. The Turks would have used that as an excuse to then attack Greece. And earlier, in the beginning of that video, I talked about how the Turks, of course, had quarantined off the whole Aegean Sea for about a year by issuing these NOTAM, which is just completely ridiculous and idiotic, because they only basically control a portion of the Aegean. We control basically the greater portion of the Aegean because all of our islands are there, which is pretty obvious. So the international community needs to speak out and do something about this. Is Donald Trump going to do something about this? Unfortunately, no, he's not. Because, first of all of my predictions about Donald Trump, unfortunately, have all come true. From his hypocrisy about wanting to basically go after the big bankers and George Soros, which, of course, he's cooperating with now. For example, he just hired on Steve Mnuchin to his staff as the new head of the Treasury Department, which I just mentioned. Okay, Treasury Department. And Steve Mnuchin is a former Goldman Sachs executive and, of course, a longtime associate of George Soros. Okay? So, but the issue, though, with Trump is that he has major business interests in Turkey. He has Trump Towers in Turkey, in Istanbul. We call it Constantinople, which is the correct term. The Turks, of course, call it Istanbul. Now, do you really think Donald Trump, who has business interests in Turkey, is going to tell the Turks, hey, leave the Greeks alone? Give me a break. He doesn't just have business interests in Turkey. He has business interests in other terrorist-sponsoring states. Turkey sponsors terrorism. They're behind ISIS, with Israel, with Qatar, with Saudi Arabia, etc. We all know that by now. It's been proven 100%. But Trump also has business interests in Azerbaijan, in Indonesia, the United Arab Emirates, and all of these states support terrorism. He has businesses all over the place in the Middle East, and this guy is going to go fight ISIS? Give me a break. Give me a break. How is Trump going to fight ISIS when he's best friends with Benjamin Netanyahu, the head of ISIS? ISIS is an acronym for Israeli Special Intelligence Services, which is nothing more than the Israeli Mossad. This is all BS, ladies and gentlemen. And I can't believe there's still all these dumb pseudo-patriots out there, particularly from the Alex Jones Twilight Zone, that still believe in this guy. And in my previous broadcasts, I laid it all out about Donald Trump. So, anyway, the issue here, of course, is, Donald Trump is not going to do anything about the Turks. Donald Trump Jr. just went to Turkey for hunting with Turkish officials. He went to have fun with Turkish officials, and they all went hunting together. Yes, you heard that correctly. And according to a Forbes article from the 28th of November, they warned Donald Trump not to get too cozy with Turkey. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. But the problem is he's been involved with the Turks for a very long time. So, Greece is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Obama doesn't want to do anything now that he's leaving office. And Trump certainly is not going to do anything now that, of course, he's going to become president, and particularly in view of the fact that he has major interests in Turkey and in other terrorist-sponsoring nations. So, that's a little food for thought for those who think he's going to basically surprise everyone and, topple the New World Order along with the Rothschilds. Give me a break. Donald Trump has been taking bailouts from the Rothschilds since day one. I've covered this so many times with my news blog in recent months. It's just ridiculous. If you want to see, though, a video, okay, an extensive video on this, okay, a summation of this, see my video on my YouTube channel with the title, Trump Exposed, Connections with Jewish Mafia, Illuminati, 666, and more. Just search that on my channel. Now, in my previous broadcast, I went over this more extensively, and you can find it all basically there in my previous broadcast. But in that particular video, you're going to just find it all within about 20 minutes. So, what is Trump going to do for Greece? He's not going to do anything. And he just released a statement 2 days ago saying that the IMF needs to pull out of the Greek financial situation once and for all because, according to reports, listen to this, Greece is going to pull out of the Eurozone in 2017. And Trump continues saying that if this happens, it's going to be a major disaster and the reputation of the IMF will be tarnished as a result, will be affected. Give me a break. And that's why he's saying it needs to pull out of Greece now. In other words, he's saying don't deal with stupid Greece, those good-for-nothings. Pull out now. I mean, this guy is just unbelievable because, first of all, throughout his whole presidential campaign, he's talked major trash on Greece, okay? Several years ago, it was either Fox News or CSNBC, I believe it was, the Squawk Box or one of those shows. He had basically talked about how he and his business partners heard that fire sales of Greek national assets were going on in Greece at that time because, the Greek government is selling off public assets to pay their bills. And he was like, yeah, I think I'm going to have to go down there because one of my associates told me that all these dirt cheap deals are going on in Greece, so I think I'm going to go down there and, check out the situation. In other words, he's talking about how he was so flippant about the fact that this was going on against Greece. Like, he didn't even care about Greece. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go take advantage of the situation, too. Recently, in his presidential campaign, he was also very flippant with Greece, basically saying how if the United States, if the debt of the United States, the national debt of the United States reaches 24 trillion, according to analysts, that is like the breaking point. All hell will break loose financially in America. And he goes, then that's when we become like Greece. I mean, he was just speaking really flippantly. And there's other statements, too, that he's issued where he's talked down on Greece, in effect. So, what's Greece going to do now between now and the timing, of course, that Trump takes over? This is a very critical period. And what's happening is the Turks are taking advantage of this period. They're seeing how Greece is in a very vulnerable position. And now they realize Obama's not going to do jack. And Trump is with us, basically, because he has business interests in Turkey. So now what we're going to do is try to put pressure on Greece, maybe even try to claim some of their Greek islands, maybe even try to go to war with them and see how this whole situation plays out, because the international community will be on our side. So this is totally sinister what the Turks are doing, but it's even more sinister what the United States has done, and that's called turning a blind eye to what's going on. So people need to speak out, because the Greek people have given us culture, they have given us everything in the Western world, and we are treating them like utter shit. This is totally jacked up, it's totally messed up, but this is a reality we need to face and we need to deal with. And the fact that Donald Trump, of course, like I said, has forged major ties now with Israel is even more disconcerting, because the Jews, too, along with the Turks, have been have done irreparable harm and damage to the Greek people and their culture, not over the just years, but over the centuries, because it was the Jews, too, who helped the Turks invade the Greek Byzantine Empire back in 1453, causing its collapse. And, of course, Greece was enslaved to the Turks for 400 years. And during this whole time, the Ottoman Empire, of course, worked heavily with Jewish bankers. They worked together with Jewish slave traders who sold young Greek boys and girls into slavery. These are all historical facts. And you can get these all, by the way, in my book with the title, Your Academic Guide to the Greek Language, Culture, and Civilization. Just type that into Google or go into Kindle, because this book is in Kindle. Your Academic Guide to the Greek Language, Culture, and Civilization by John Contreras. And, of course, my other book is there, too, Hellenic Crisis by John Contreras, Hellenic Crisis. Both of these books go over extensively, basically about what's gone on in Greece, not only in the past 6 years with the economic crisis, but, in recent decades. And I show how the Western powers have sought to make sure that Greece does not become a powerful nation and a powerful player in that corner of the world, because if they do, they're going to cause a worldwide revolution and cause and help all the nations of the earth to overthrow the yoke of the New World Order. Because Greece is a Christian nation, they don't go along with that, the Greek people. But unfortunately, our Greek leaders, though, in recent years have been totally bought and paid for by the New World Order. They all, of course, bow down to the Jewish Zionist interests. They all go to Israel. They all go worship at the nonsensical Holocaust memorial. They put on the little Jewish yarmulke, and they kiss ass, unfortunately. So, if you read my two books, you'll be thoroughly enlightened, not only on the Greek language, culture, and history, but also on the Greek economic crisis. I encourage you to get them because you support the work that I do as a activist. Now, I am a Greek journalist, and I appear on Greek TV, both here in the United States and in Greece, but I don't get paid for it. My main bread, of course, comes from my work as a Greek translator for the U.S. Justice Department and as a Greek interpreter for the court system here in California. So, but all the journalistic work, though, I do is pretty much for free, although it's very beneficial because I've been very well recognized in recent years doing all this. Of course, Greeks don't have money. I mean, I'm talking to Greeks right now, top journalists. I'm talking to top psychologists in Greece. No one has work because there's no money. Greece is in a crisis right now. But I do what I can do to help them by spreading the truth about what's going on there to the English-speaking world here. And that really is my goal. Because if we don't do it, then Greece is lost. And we all have to make an effort to support Greece in some way. And you can really support these efforts by buying my books, by liking my page on Facebook, John Contreras, by, subscribing to my YouTube channel, by spreading my videos. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help, get the truth out. So just to wrap up this broadcast, what's going on in Greece is that their second evaluation has not been completed yet with the Troika. And this is a huge, huge issue. that the Troika needs to deal with before they go forward, basically, in giving Greece any more economic aid. And it's taken just a long time to deal with this. The first evaluation was completed a couple of years ago, and the second one basically hasn't been done yet. And Greece is not going to basically get another dime until they agree. And basically what the terms are is that Greece has to sell off their national assets. They have to privatize their national assets. They have to reduce the labor workforce in the public sector. They have to get rid of tax benefits for the poor people in Greece. I mean, all this crazy stuff is what they're demanding right now. The Troika is demanding right now from Greece, and all it's doing is further hurting the Greek people, plunging them into despair. I mean, these Satanists, how can I put it here? These nut jobs from Europe are really seeking to annihilate the Greek people. I mean, I'm not even kidding you with what's going on. And like I've said before throughout my broadcasts, this whole Greek economic crisis in itself is a fraud because it's based on a lie. And the lie is that the Greek people basically have been irresponsible with their finances, that they retire too early, that there was tons of public malfeasance and all this stuff. Now, some of that stuff is true, but basically the whole idea of this Greek economic crisis is predicated on their debt, which is something around 400 billion, which of course has not even been dealt with in 6 years. Imagine that. The debt is the same level. It's even higher than it was starting 6 years ago. So basically, this debt was forged and made up. And we know that from Greek officials from the Greek Statistical Office called Elstat. Elstat is the Greek counterpart of the Brussels Statistical Office. They're at the headquarters of the European Union in Brussels, called Eurostat. So what happened was the IMF, America, Europe, forged this plan by which to help basically German and French banks and other banks pay off their debt by making up this whole garbage about the Greek debt. And basically they wanted to create this myth about the Greek debt as a pretext to put Greece under the control of the Troika so that Greece can get these funds, and then give them away basically to these aforementioned banks, which is pretty much, what's taken place. So the Greek Statistical Office has come out repeatedly and stated that this was all a fraud, the debt was blowing up, and really the Greek national debt is only something like 30 billion, which is not even that much at all. 30 billion, that's it. I mean, imagine that in comparison with our national debt, which they say is something like 17 trillion. That's peanuts. But anyway, besides all that, it was made up, and the guy who played the key role for this on the side of Greece was a guy by the name of Andreas Georgiou, who was a former top IMF official for years. Notice his resume here, IMF. So they hired him on back in, it was like 2008 or 9, I believe, to take over the Greek Statistical Office, and he told his employees to bulge the Greek debt, and that would be used as a pretext to put Greece under the control of the Troika, because that would then mean that Greece is in dire financial straits and they need Europe to bail them out, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what's taken place. So this guy is wanted now, Andreas Georgiou, for major fraud by the Greek Supreme Court. They've issued a warrant for his arrest to try him for basically high treason. And the United States government is basically fostering this guy. They have him hiding out here in D.C. They've given him a beautiful home in D.C. They've rewarded him for the evil he's caused to the Greek people with all the fraud that he's committed. So next time somebody asks you what happened in Greece, or next time somebody tries to tell you that the Greeks deserve what they get because they're lazy, they didn't pay their taxes, and all this garbage we hear on TV about the Greek economic crisis. Tell them what I'm telling you now, because my information comes directly from the sources. You're not going to get better information anywhere else. There's my 2 books, which I just mentioned. The one that deals particularly with the economic crisis is Hellenic Crisis by John Koturis. You can find that on Kindle, Amazon's Kindle. Thank you so much for listening today. God bless, and we'll talk to you next time.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and I am the host of Anti-Media Radio